I'm Todd Bookspan, and welcome to your neighborhood real estate show. The hyperlocal real estate show where real estate professionals talk about the neighborhood you live in or the neighborhood you want to live in. This episode is brought to you by homebuyeruniversity.net. Your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to homebuyeruniversity.net to get started online today. Hey everyone, I'm Todd Bookspan and welcome to another Your Neighborhood Real Estate Show. I'm super excited today for our guest, Tony Preston. He's the operating manager at JPAR Vantage. Welcome, Tony.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this.
All right. Fun. Yeah, you know what? That is it. It's all about having fun and learning. And, you know, we were talking about it beforehand. You know, you're the operating partner of real estate companies. So we've traditionally had on people who produce, and you're a former producer in the commercial world, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I was joking because you were out there talking to Susie ahead of time, talking about working at Barrow's Pizza as a kid. I'm sure that wasn't the career that set you up for where you were. So kind of give a background of how you stumbled into this real estate world.
Because I learned how to drive and navigate the streets, so I knew my directionals. So if you gave me an address, I could pretty much pinpoint exactly where you're at just by learning how to drive the streets and delivering pizza. So
I love that. I grew up racing bikes, and so I rode my bike on every street in town. So I was like, all right, I knew traffic really well, and, unless you got outside of my bubble. All right, so walk me through that. Obviously, started off doing pizza, but then where did real estate come in?
So I'm actually a third generation into the business. So I think when I was old enough to get my license, I did so. So I was probably licensed, I think about 19. I was about the age that I was.
So it was a given you were getting into real estate.
Yeah, it was a given. I originally first started working with my grandmother in the business, and at a small little boutique brokerage, which was awesome because it was Brookie Coleman who was extremely influential in my career because she was just a wealth of knowledge. There was not a type of transaction that she couldn't do, and back in those days, which we might be faced with at some time here in the future, you were doing real estate a little bit differently. So, you were doing assumables with no qual, and then you had the qualifying assumables. And so you were doing wraps and all kinds of things that you learned in real estate school. But now people don't have an idea what the heck I'm even talking about if I start talking about wraps and assumables. So.
It's funny. It's all part of my vocabulary, but you're right. We haven't seen that in a while. So was that residential then was your start, or was that commercial?
It was all started off in residential, and did that. I went and worked for a good friend of mine over at Century 21, and I worked with three really good friends over there, and from there it was just it was doing the daily grind. So we had the big Kohl's directory blue book that we just pull up, flip open the page, and start dialing away, and did about 100 calls a day, trying to get appointments, and did that, and from there. That kind of led me into technology, and I worked for a little startup company based out of Tempe called Insight, and was there for a while, and then started working for more startup organizations in the technology space during the whole .com boom, and then went through the bust of it. So it was a fun ride during that time, but a lot of good learning lessons.
Absolutely. And so then you came out of that and said, I'm getting back into real estate, and then you hung your flag as a commercial person.
Well, no, I actually, so funny story is, well, it's not necessarily funny, but when I left technology, I told my wife I'm going to take some time off, and she's like, well, how much time? And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do yet. And so I took off a year, and she was just like, you cannot do this, and you need to find a job. You need to go do something. So I went out and I looked at buying franchises. I looked at so many different types of business operations, and I always kept coming back to real estate, and a friend of ours that was looking to retire was looking to sell his business, and so I went and quickly reactivated my license because I let it slip for a period of time while I was in technology, and so then I went and bought the real estate company, and then owned and operated that for about 16 years.
Wow. All right, and so JPAR Vantage, new player in our market, that you've brought here as operating partner. I mean, talk about that for a minute for folks who aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, so JPAR, they're a residential-based company, primarily in all their services, and And when they first approached me about the opportunity, I first originally turned them down. I'm like, no, we're building out something on the commercial side that I'm not going to deviate away from. And then they just kept being persistent at it. And so we really evaluated the whole model. And one of the things that I truly identified with, because part of the reason why I got into real estate or back into real estate was I knew the struggles that most agents had in the business. So this business is based off of shiny lures. People are being sold the shiny lures that this is going to be the be all end all and it's going to fix your career and you don't have to do anything. You can sit on a beach sipping Mai Tais and your business is just going to be running for you, which is so further from the truth. And so I truly identified with how they approach their business. They're solely focused on productivity and service, which were the two core values of the whole entire organization. They have productivity standards. So their goal was, that agents had to do it at least, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's not when you look at the national averages, but do at least 6 transactions a year. And what they do as an organization is provide the tools, resources, the training for agents to accomplish that. But ultimately, the main goal of the company is to be the top producing per agent organization in the real estate. In the real estate community out here in the United States for now, and then who knows what happens internationally. But I identified so well with what their main missions were, and quite honestly, it aligns so well with what our mission was on the commercial side of the business and what we were looking to do, and that we had the path of developing out their commercial division nationally.
That's awesome. So commercial, for someone who's not familiar, you guys doing multifamily, you doing retail, you doing office, all of the above?
So commercial real estate is such a broad term. There's so much that goes into it. So you have, like you just said, multifamily, you have office, you have retail, you have hospitality, land, you have all these different verticals within the commercial real estate space. And so our objective is to build a network of commercial brokers that have a specialty across all boards. Because ultimately, who we're trying to serve best is the investor. So everything that we built from the ground up for how we support our agents, how do we train them, the technologies that we're placing, is really to support the investor and help the investor achieve the goals that they're looking to do, which is always wealth building. So anybody that owns real estate, you're buying real estate to build wealth.
Absolutely.
Right? So ultimately, our investor is anybody that owns real estate, and we want to help them achieve the goals that they're looking. So part of that is, how do you build it? Once you build it, how do you grow it? Once you start growing it, how do you sustain it?
Absolutely.
Those are the 3 main components that we focus on.
All right. So let me put the investor hat on for a second.
Yeah.
So what's the typical investor client look like that you work with?
It really varies. So we deal with small home builders on the land development side. So we have a whole land development team that can help with entitlement services. That's getting projects ready to go ground up and go vertical. We have our retail group that works with businesses and helps, like, for example, restaurants, bars, and so forth, how to improve their business so they can meet their growth goals that they're looking to achieve. So we partner with these types of businesses all the way to medical. I mean, we're across all platforms. And so what I do is I help people build specialties into that market that they want to focus on.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's the fastest way to build a business in commercial real estate is by specializing, because once you specialize, you specialize on a product, and that's a fixed thing, right?
Right.
And now from there, we have to start understanding what the market is, what's going on within that market. And then now you have to start tracking the people that are participating in that. And that's the moving component, right? So ultimately, real estate is a business that's based off of relationships. Everything that, and I think that's probably one of the biggest problems with the real estate industry is that they don't focus as much as telling people what the business truly is. Everybody thinks of it from a transactional level, which the transaction occurs because of the relationship.
Absolutely.
And so people try to put the transaction in front of the relationship, and there's some really successful real estate agents out there that are very transactional. They're fantastic at it. But ultimately, to build a sustaining business, To build long-lasting relationships, you have to focus on the relationship component. And the only way you can do that is how do you add value to people's lives?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that most people just forget that relationship. You just said it has to come first. I mean, you're not gonna, no one's gonna trust you until they know that they like you and that they, that they want to do business. So switching back over to the productivity and service part of it, you said that you were dialing 100 people a day back when you got into it. So when it comes to the productivity side, are there any metrics that you guys are encouraging agents to be focused on right now?
Here's the thing is, and by the way, that was dialing off of, touch phone.
I was going to ask if it was, I was going to ask if what kind of phone it was, but I know it's not a headset now. Like I know a lot of people now who are right on that headset for 2-3 hours a day.
Multi-caller, people are probably doing 100 calls a day in just a matter of 15 minutes.
What's the difference when you can look it up on the computer versus having to open a book?
Yeah. So it was a full day event of dialing numbers and looking up numbers. But ultimately, it really kind of depends on the individual because people have individual strengths. Ultimately, I think for people to be truly successful, especially in our changing markets in which we're going to have more and more fluctuations within our market. Traditionally, real estate's been fairly stable as far as, you'll go through cycles. So it's Absolutely. A 5 to 10 year cycle. And then an event happens. But I think we'll start seeing more cycles occurring on a shorter occurrence. So ultimately, what people, to be successful is you have to build basically 6 pillars into your business of where your lead sources are coming in. And you can't just rely upon one. Because when that one dries up, look at Zillow. Their lead flows are down 60%. So if you're a Zillow agent and you're dependent on Zillow, well, 60% of your business just got impacted. So that can be
it's
catastrophic.
Huge. Yeah, significant
for people. So you have to have at least 6 into your business on different ways of bringing in opportunities. And so. Part of that is just getting back to the basics, right? Getting out there, knocking on doors is one component of it.
Always shocking to people.
Houses,
get face to face, belly to belly.
Yeah. Now that inventory is actually sitting on the market for a while, you can start doing open houses, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that people can do. Obviously, with social media, that's created a whole nother avenue of bringing in and building relationships. And so, ultimately, that's what your goal is. You have to have it's a game of touches. Yeah. You have to touch a lot of people.
And so normal, like what's the target agent then that you have? Is there a typical agent or not really?
It depends. So if I'm looking from a residential agent, it's, ultimately the people that succeed the best in our organization are the ones that plug into it. So take full advantage because we offer so much. And here's the part of the problem of offering people so much is it becomes overwhelming. Yeah. Once you become overwhelming, you just stop. Yeah. And you shut down and you don't.
You get paralyzed.
You get paralyzed. And so, with that, it's, I always use the analogy. I probably overuse it so much, but it's like eating an elephant. You can't eat in one sitting. You just take it a bite at a time. But ultimately, it's the people that plug into the environment, take advantage of the resources that are provided. And JPAR is a unique company because nationally and not just locally, but people are invested to helping other people succeed in the organization, which is pretty awesome. And that goes all the way to the senior leadership of the organization. So everybody's completely approachable. You can schedule a one-on-one time with the CEO of the company if you wanted to,
awesome.
To discuss business strategies. And who better than, he used to be the right-hand person in Tom Ferry. So why not take advantage of those? But problem is people don't. So if, it's just like anything in life, you're going to get out of what you put into. And so if you're not putting things into it, then you're never going to get anything out of it.
I'm always surprised. And those who don't know who Tom Ferry is, obviously one of the greatest real estate coaches, ever. And, I'm always surprised. I met an author once, Bob Goff, and he put his cell phone number in the back of his book. And everyone's like, well, that's really crazy. So I'm like, oh, I'll give him a call. And I'm like, he's like, hello. I'm like, oh, and I just laugh. It's, I had an opportunity. I already had a couple of questions I was dying to have him answer for me. But I love the availability piece. And I do feel like most of the time people are afraid to pull that ring and take advantage of the opportunity. So what a great piece of it. And, you said kind of plug in. So I sort of view that's going to be somebody who is entrepreneurial minded because they like the way that your company operates, but also team minded because they're going to actually, want to learn from the other people who are successful in the organization.
Yeah, it's collaboration is such a powerful tool, and to me, it is the agents that don't move into a more of a collaborative environment eventually will die on the vine. The way technology is advancing, technology is never going to replace a relationship. So
Right.
there's always going to be the need for real estate agents and mortgage people. That need is never going to go away. But it's the people that are going to adapt and utilize the technology into their business to support the relationship at a higher level, because people have a much higher need or want or an experience that they're looking for. And if you're not able to provide that, there's someone else that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just so much technology coming out on the market. I know that JPAR, you're actually leading the technology committee, and I've got to imagine your background of being with Insight and doing what you did in tech for that decade is really advantageous for you.
Yeah, no, it's and that's one of the great things is, JPAR is not a technology development company. What they do is they're partnering with best of class, and so the suite of products that they're bringing in, these are tested before to find out, hey, is this really going to add value to people's lives, or is this going to be just that shiny object? The thing with technology that a lot of people I don't fully think understand or grasp is every piece of technology, so we call it technology stack, that you bring into your business, it's its own business unit. And so you have to have a business plan of how you're going to basically utilize this new piece of technology. So in our space, or in my space from a technology perspective, it's discussing utilization and adaptation, right? So if you don't adapt that into your business and you're not utilizing it, which most technology platforms sit about 15 to 30% utilization. So people aren't fully utilizing the products that they're invested into.
Writing a check every month and not thinking about it.
Yeah, and that's part of this business, right? Everybody's being sold these things and they're writing checks on a monthly basis, and some $30, some $50, but you start adding that up, it's a lot of money.
Oh yeah, in any economy, but especially this economy.
Yeah. So reducing the tech stack, it's I did some consulting for a period of time on helping companies reduce their tech stack, because ultimately one platform probably could do everything that they were wanting to do. They just haven't taken the time to learn how to do that. So oftentimes what happens is people build these tech stacks because they want an email service for this, and then they want a text service for this, and then they want social media marketing, and then they want this and all this. So you're having all these systems that you're trying to manage, and you're getting low utilization out of all the systems and your costs are tremendously higher. And then you have that many more systems to try and understand, which is almost an impossible task. And so
I love that
simplify
idea.
it.
Right. Simplify it. Right. I got a good friend. He always says that, no, of course I'm dropping a ball on this quote, but complexity is the enemy of profitability.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Coach Michael Regan. But I think that's it, right? Most people overthink it. I got to have all those things. And then because of that, it ends up short circuiting their really ability to grow.
Well, I think that's also, that's sales in general, right? As everybody makes sales so much more complex than what it is when it's two things. It's follow up and follow through. If you can do those two things really well, you're going to be successful as a salesperson. But
yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think we're having a core value of productivity. I mean, productivity, I think, is the driving force. I think that people have the ability to capture, do what they know they need to do, and as efficient as possible. Some people are obviously more efficient than others, that they're going to grow. And so I know that you guys are obviously helping coach people through doing more with less.
Well, it's taking best of practice, and at the end of the day, there's no sense in recreating wills when the will has already been built. Just you need to learn how to utilize it.
Yeah.
So taking best of practices of what other people are doing within their business, that may be something you can implement into yours. I think it's just that whole collaboration component, because as this market evolves, things are changing at such a rapid pace, especially from the technology front, that you have to leverage other people's knowledge out there. That there's always someone that's going to be smarter than you than in a subject, right? So leverage that knowledge to put that into your business, and The other unique thing too, from a business perspective, is what makes us, I think, a little bit more unique too, as well, is that we do it from a transaction fee basis. So when you're operating a business, your business is as strong as your cash flow, right? If you don't have cash flow, and that's kind of where we're a little bit different. Instead of taking our cut from an organization standpoint all up front, which is like most organizations do, is our cut is spread out throughout the entire year. So
you're vested in their success.
We're vested in their success. So like some companies, they celebrate, hey, this person capped in 6 months, or this person capped in 3 weeks. Well, you just paid $10,000 or whatever your cap is in a 3-week period of time. What if you were to take that, save that $10,000 and reinvest that into your business on a monthly basis from a cash flow perspective? Could you grow your business even further?
Yeah.
So, a lot of people just don't look at it from a P&L standpoint on how to manage your cash flow, how to reinvest that money, any savings that you ever get, how to reinvest that back into, or how you're going to utilize that to fund your life.
Yeah, I love that. So one of the things you mentioned was, investors and helping people build wealth. So I know you're getting ready to launch in your wealth building strategies podcast.
Yeah.
Got that name right?
Yes, that's it.
And so talk about that. What's the goal there? What type of wealth building strategies are you talking about? I mean, how do people plug into that community?
So the main goal is really to help educate, have conversations, build best of practice. What's working for some people, from an independent investor to syndications to institutional, right? There's things that we can learn from everybody in this process. And at the end of the day, it's as you're investing, it's always about mitigating risk and how to do so. So a lot of it's just really going to be focused on, educating kind of what's new, what's coming up in the marketplace. Probably a big area that we'll be talking a lot about is just because of the natural relationship between syndication and then where we see the biggest growth that's going to have the biggest or largest impact into the industry is the transformation of the NFTs from a fractionalization ownership model. So, a lot of exciting things that are going to be happening in our industry that's going to create a lot of opportunities. So it's going to be an exciting time to be an investor.
I can't wait for a future episode when we sit down and you walk us through, here's a deal I just did on the blockchain, and we walk through step by step. I think that'll be truly fascinating. So kind of as we kind of shift into wrap up mode, let's talk about, we started off with you in JPAR. Mm-hmm. What didn't we touch on that you think is something that would be great for us to chat about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and we've already kind of touched on it, is I drive this point. This is my point that I drive to everybody, is to think more relational versus transactional in your business. When people start thinking on a transactional level, it freezes them and paralyzes them. At the end of the day, people just need to be active out there building relationships. That's how this business is won. And so that's how people are going to be more successful in what they're doing in their business. And then more importantly, just touching base back on, your lead sources, is you're going to have to develop more lead sources. You can't just depend upon one. Facebook is not just going to be that one be all end all to your business. You're going to have to go out there and do other things.
There we go. 6 pillars, right?
Yeah.
That's, I think that's really key. So I think it's be fascinating to watch. I'm super grateful that you spent time, because I think, I've got introduced to the company a few months ago, but I've been dying to dig a little bit deeper and to get to know you more. So I just hope that everyone else here who's listening, who has questions, reach out. What's the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
They can give me a call on my cell phone, 602-615-1383. You can Google me. I should be fairly easy to find.
I Googled you, so you are easy to find. I do know that.
I'm pretty easy to find. Although you might have to put Arizona in there, because I think there's a famous writer in the UK and maybe a famous artist of some sort in the UK too as well. So
that's good. We'll call them too.
Yeah, we'll give them a call.
A little more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. But all right. I'm pretty accessible. LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever.
All right, folks. Tony Preston, JPAR Vantage. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by homebuyeruniversity.net, your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to homebuyeruniversity.net to get started online today.